So today is your first day, I think, for you and for you. I think the first day, and I'm sure you'll say, what on earth is going on in this place? These gentle people are all screaming and shouting. But that is normal Christian life. Today we have a guest who's going to minister to us in English, and I hope you are all ready to listen. Adelam? Adelam, awakiዎች? No, ready አላችሁ? We're going to hear a sermon in English, and Brother Henok will continue what he started at Christmas. And do you want to welcome him very warmly?
How's everyone doing?
Good. Praise the Lord.
So I just wanted to share something really small. Pastor said that was a continuation, but it's actually completely different.
It's just an introduction.
Yeah. So will you turn with me to Joshua chapter 2? And
Bit loud.
yeah. And I think we should read the whole chapter. 24 verses. So I'll quickly pray before we start. Father, we thank you for this time that you've given us to learn from your word. We thank you for bringing us here safely, and we pray that I pray that you would help me to teach this word the way that you want me to, the way that you have given it to me, and I pray that it will impact other people as well. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
So it says, and Joshua the son of Nun sent out of Shittim two men to spy secretly. I'm reading from the King James, saying, "Go view the land, even Jericho." And they went and came into a harlot's house named Rahab and lodged there. And it was told to the king of Jericho, saying, "Behold, there came men in hither tonight of the children of Israel to search out the country." And the king of Jericho sent out unto Rahab, saying, "Bring forth the men that are come to thee, which are entered into thine house, for they have come to search out all the country." And the woman took the two men and hid them, and said thus, "There came men unto me, but I wist not whence they were. And it came to pass about the time of shutting of the gate, when it was dark, that the men went out, and whither the men went out I don't know, but pursue after them quickly, for ye shall overtake them." But she had brought them up to the roof of the house, and hid them with the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order upon the roof. And the men pursued after them the way to the Jordan unto the fords. And as soon as they which pursued after them were gone out, they shut the gate. And before they were laid down, she came up unto them upon the roof, and the Lord had given unto the land. And she said unto them, "I know that the Lord hath given you the land, and that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you." So she's saying that we're all scared because of you. "For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what ye did unto the two kings of the Amorites that were on the other side of the Jordan, Sihon and Og, of whom ye utterly destroyed. And as soon as we heard these things, our hearts did melt. Neither did there remain any more courage in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and in earth beneath. Now therefore I pray you, swear unto me by the Lord, since I have shown you kindness, that you will also show kindness unto my father's house, this is Rahab speaking, and give me a true token, and that ye will save alive my father and my mother, and my brethren and my sisters, and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. And the men answered her, our life for yours, if ye utter not this our business, and it shall be, when the Lord hath given us the land, that we will kindly and truly deal with thee. Then she let them down by a cord through the window, for her house was upon the town wall, and she dwelt upon the wall. And she said unto them, get you to the mountain, lest the pursuers meet you, and hide yourselves there 3 days, until the pursuers be returned, and afterwards you may go your way. And the men said unto her, we will be blameless of this thine oath, which thou hast made us swear. So we'll be blameless of the oath that you've made us swear. Behold, when we come into the land, thou shalt bind this line of scarlet thread in the window, which thou didst let us down by, and thou shalt bring thy father and thy mother and thy brethren, and all the father's household home unto thee. And it shall be that whosoever shall go out of the doors of thy house into the street, his blood shall be upon his head, and we will be guiltless. And whosoever shall be with you in the house, his blood shall be on your head, if any hand be upon him. And if you utter this our business, then we will be quit of thine oath which thou hast made us swear. So what he's saying is, if the people that are in your house, as long as they're in your house, then we will do the thing that we said we'll do. We'll save you when we come to destroy the city. But if they're not, then it's not our fault, is what he's saying. So it says, and she said, according unto your words be it. She sent them away, and they departed, and she bound the scarlet line in the window. Verse 22. And they went and came unto the mountain, and abode there 3 days, until the pursuers were returned. And the pursuers sought them throughout all the way, but found them not. And then it continues. So what I want to talk about is this idea of possessing the land. And I strongly believe that in this time, God would have me to tell you that it's the time for the church to possess the land, and would see into what I mean by this. So I want to start to explain this from the very beginning, from a man called Moses. So Moses, as you may know, the hand of God was on his life since his infancy, since he was a child, since he was a little boy. And the enemy tried to take him out in many different ways. Obviously, you know that when he was born in a time where the Pharaoh said to the people of the land that anyone who is beneath the age of 2 will be killed. And he obviously had that command out. And Moses was born in the time where Pharaoh said this, the Bible tells us. So what you got to understand is that he was born in a time where it was normal to be killed at the age that he was in. So he was vulnerable to everything that Pharaoh had said would happen. And he certainly wasn't a stranger to slavery, to oppression, to depression, because he lived in a time where his people were tortured. He lived in a time where his people were oppressed by Pharaoh, by the Egyptians. And so he wasn't a stranger to this. So it was part of his life. But however, he was unique, and he was different to other people because he had a prophetic word on him. So because of the prophetic word on his life, he couldn't die. Because God had destined Moses to be the deliverer of the people of Israel. And until that happened, God wouldn't permit him to die. And it's the same with us in our lives.
Amen.
Because until we've successfully done the purpose for which we've come to this earth, we won't die. Because there's a word that has been spoken of our life, and whatever God says, he will do.
Amen.
So, prophetic word on his life. He was, as I said, he was born in the midst of chaos. He was born in the midst of turmoil, in the midst of pain. And we see in Exodus chapter 2, verse 2, you don't have to go there, but the Bible says that the woman conceived, and when she saw that he was a goodly child, this is Moses, she hid him 3 months. Now the word goodly here is a very broad term. It's an ambiguous term. So it's in the Hebrew, it could mean different things. It could mean multiple different things. But generally it means that he was pleasant, he was excellent, he was unique is what it means. Which tells me that there was something about his appearance and his nature and his character, even as a young kid, which made him extraordinarily significant. And so, if we go to the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 23. Bible says, by faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents because they saw he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment. Hebrews 11:23. Should I have someone read it in the Amharic?
ሙሴ ከተወለደ በኋላ ወላጆቹ ያማረ ሕፃን መሆኑን አይተው በእምነት 3 ወር ተሸሸጉት፣ የንጉሡን አዋጅ አፈሩ።
It says by faith, I'll read it one more time. Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents because they saw he was a proper child and they were not afraid of the king's commandments. So he eventually, in the process of time, we see that he miraculously appeared in the hands of the Pharaoh's daughter. They put him in a basket, obviously. You know the story, I don't want to go too deep into it. But the thing that we learn from this is that when it's your season, when God has ordained a specific time for you to fulfill your purpose, then there's always a shift, and whatever the enemy meant for evil, God will always make it for good.
Amen.
Whenever it's your time, whenever God has put a season for you to fulfill your purpose, as we see in the life of Moses. I want to quickly go to the text, but so as Moses was grown up, if we continue reading to verse 24, it says, by faith Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. And it says by faith, so choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin. And so it says then, verse 26, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt. So he knew about Christ. Moses knew about Christ long time before Jesus came. He saw him in the future, and he thought that it was better to suffer with the people of God than to be in Pharaoh's palace and to live there and to be called his son, which amazes me because he chose the path of pain with the people of God than to be with a lot of riches, a lot of wealth. And then he spent 40 years in his life in Egypt, and God sent him to the wilderness for another 40 years. And the wilderness we see in the Bible is the training ground before God elevates you to your purpose.
Amen.
So whenever you're in a dry place in your life where you don't feel like God is listening to you, is hearing you when you pray, those dry places, it's God's training ground for you, so that when the time comes, when the season comes, you'll be able to fulfill your purpose.
Amen.
And so there's many examples of this. For example, David was I don't want to go too deep into it, but he was in the wilderness. He was looking after the sheep, and that's where God chose him, and God anointed him. He sent Samuel to anoint him to be king over Israel, and it was in the wilderness that God gave him the training, so that when the sheep came, he would tear the lion and the bear apart with his bare hands, and he would deliver the sheep, and that was training for him, so that when he becomes king, when the enemy comes, when adversity comes, when different things come, he'll be able to, in a sense, tear the lion and the bear apart. So wilderness is a training ground. That's the point. So when his time came, he spoke to Pharaoh. He said, "Let my people go." He spoke to him authoritatively, and you know the story, so it continues. Moses delivered Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, and according to the direction and the guidance of God, he led him through the wilderness by way of the pillar by day, the pillar of cloud by day, and the pillar of fire by night. And we see this throughout the life of Moses, how God uses him to deliver the people. But then we get introduced to another character called Joshua, and that's what I really wanted to talk about today. He was the successor of Moses. So God anointed him to succeed Moses. So he was the second in command at that time, and God used him, and after Moses died, to lead the people into the promised land. And in Exodus 33 verse 11, let's go there quickly. Exodus 33 verse 11.
ዘጸአት 33 11
Do you want to read it in heart?
እግዚአብሔርም ሰው ከባልንጀራው ጋር እንደሚነጋገር ፊት ለፊት ከሙሴ ጋር ይነጋገር ነበር። ሙሴም ወደ ሰፈሩ ይመለስ ነበር። ነገር ግን ሎሌው ብላቴና የነዌ ልጅ ኢያሱ ከድንኳኑ አይለይም ነበር።
Yes, so that's just the last part. It says, "And he turned again into the camp, but his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, departed not out of the tabernacle." So he departed not out of the tabernacle. He was always in the tabernacle. He was always praying. He was always seeking the will of God. At a young age, it says he was a young man. And so Moses saw this. So after Moses finished his prayer, after he finished speaking with God, he would go to the tabernacle and he would see Joshua always there praying, always there seeking God. And that was something special about Joshua. So when we fast forward to the text that we read first, because the point I wanted to say today is about possessing the land. God had chosen Joshua at decisive time in Israel's history, because Israel were now about to come to the promised land, which God had originally shown Abraham. And they were about to possess the land at this point. And so God gave them specific instructions through Joshua. And at this point, they're about to invade a city called Jericho. And you know the story. So when they come to Jericho, God says to them, 7 days and 7 nights march around the city, and then when I tell you to, on the 7th day, then you shout and the walls will come down. So he gave them specific instructions, but at this point they came just to spy the city. So they came to view the land before they possessed it. And in viewing the land, so in order to possess the land that God has for us, we need to be strategic and we need to be critical. So we can't be not knowing what we're doing. We need to receive key information about how to possess the land, how to do it. The land could be many different things for many different people. It might be a goal that you have. It might be a promotion in a job. It might be something financial. It might be something in your spiritual life that you want to reach. It could be many different things for different people. But I'm just going to give you some keys for just generally about it. So in order to possess the land that God has for us, I said we need to be strategic and critical. And the word view here, it says in verse 2, let me just read it quickly. Yeah, verse 2 says, verse 1, sorry, go view the land, even Jericho. And they went. So he says, view the land. It was a command. The word view means to look, to inspect, to perceive, to consider. It means, most importantly, it means to see. And so what it's telling us is before we possess the land, we must have vision. We must be able to see. What is it that we want? As I said, it could mean different things, but God requires us to see something before we possess it. And so, whatever the goal may be, it could be, as I said, different things, but God requires us to see it first, to visualize it, to have a vision. And once we've seen it, once we understand what we want, once we're specific about it, we see that here, that once they saw it, they went to spy. And spy obviously means to walk along, it means to gather information, inside information. So in other words, to possess the land, you must have hidden or divine revelation about something. So you must have inside information about something before you possess it. And so for them, they were about to possess the land of Jericho. And so they had to be critical in getting hidden information about it before they possessed it. And so to possess, it means to acquire, to seize, to obtain, to occupy, to own or retain something. So in other words, it belongs to you. But it may be in someone else's hands, but it's yours. So for them, the land of Jericho, they knew that God was going to give it to them. But it wasn't theirs at that time. It was Jericho's at that time. But because God told them to go into the land and to possess it, they knew that it was theirs. But their time, it wasn't their time though. So for example, another way to put it about possessing, if you watch basketball, and Thaddeus, you probably watch basketball. Or football, there's when the team has possession, it means that the game plan switches from defense to offense. So if your team has the ball, you're not gonna just play defense because your team has the ball. So you're gonna go forwards and you're gonna play offensively, and that's when you have possession of the ball. That word possession there. So what God requires of us in order to possess the land, and I'm almost done, is to play offensively, if you understand what I mean by that. So he doesn't want us to play defense, he wants us to attack, to go forwards. And that's the only way that we'll be able to possess the land that God has for us. And last few things I want to say, whatever the enemy has stolen from you, whatever the devil has stolen from you, it may be your prayer life, it may be your desire to know God more. Maybe you stopped reading the Bible a lot, and you stopped connecting with the Word of God. Whatever He's stolen, it needs to be returned. And the way to return it, as I said, is about possessing the land. So with God, moving forwards, attacking, playing offense, not defense. And Jesus said, I don't have the passage with me, but it says, from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of God suffereth violence, but the violent take it by force.
Yes.
So again, it's about playing offense. It's about having possession of the ball, and it's about possessing the land. And it says the violent take it by force. So the land isn't for anybody who's afraid. It's not for anyone who's weak. It's for someone who's made up in their mind that everything that the devil has stolen, I'm gonna get it back. So it's for someone who has a made up mind. And so in this season, whatever land that the enemy has stolen from you, whatever territory that he's stolen from you, it has to be returned. And and the amazing thing, lastly before I finish, that I learned from this story is that Rahab, who was the harlot, the prostitute in the story, God used her in order to protect the spies and in order to hide them from the pursuers. And it's amazing how when your season comes, when your time comes, God uses the enemy to bless you.
Amen.
So He doesn't just use your friends, the people that you know. He can also use the enemy to bless you.
Amen.
And that's what we see in the text. Rahab, who was a harlot, who was a prostitute, the least likely person to bless God's people, was the one that opened the way for them to possess the land. And she was smart. She said, when you come the next time to possess the land, then remember me. She said, remember me, and don't forget me and my family. She knew, I'll finish, but she knew that if I move with the plan of God, if I move with whoever has the agenda of God in their life, then I'll always be successful. She knew that.
Amen.
So she wanted to be with God's people, with God's plan, because she saw that when Israel came, the terror of Israel was on Jericho. So they were afraid. They were already afraid of Israel, and Israel haven't done anything. They just been walking through a wilderness, but Jericho was afraid of them. And so she knew that it's better if I be with Israel, on Israel's side, on God's side. So she was smart. We need to be smart like that. So wherever God is, wherever He's moving, you see in different times, in different seasons, God moves in different ways. And today he may be moving a different way to the way that He was moving yesterday. But wherever He is, wherever He's going, we need to be with His plan.
Amen.
So wherever He's moving, it's better for us to be with Him. And that's what Rahab understood from the story we see. And that's what I have on my heart. We'll pray and then we'll finish. Father God, I thank You for giving us this time to learn from You, to learn from Your word. And I pray that everything that's been said today, let it be in our hearts and let us apply it into our lives and give us the divine ability to move forward and to possess the land that You have for us. Help us to get clarity and help us to be clear about what You want for us, Lord Jesus, and how You want us to possess the land. Whatever it may be, God, I pray right now that it will be returned to the people of God right now.
Amen.
Everything that the devil has stolen, it could be the prayer life, it could be the finances, it could be various aspects of their life. Right now, God, I pray that everything that has been stolen from them will be returned
Amen.
with interest.
Amen.
God, I pray that not just restored, but not just restoration, but restitution. Let it be returned with interest, oh God. Right now, I pray, God, that you give them the ability to possess the land that you have prepared for them. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Henok. What a wonderful message to you from the Lord. Amen. Well done. God bless you. Be praying for you.